Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Defacto Review. My name is Mugi, and I'm covering for Terence tonight as well. Good evening, Mr. Jargal.
Yep. Good evening. Good evening to everybody. Thank you for watching us. My name is Jargal, nickname Defacto, and we start our Sunday night review, right? Okay.
Let's see what our topics of conversation are for tonight. Okay, these are the three topics of conversation we have today with Mr. Jargal. Let's start with the first topic, which is we're continuing on from last week and talking about internet. And there's a term you coined last week in your weekly column called Erdinbilgism, sort of a phenomenon going on in Mongolia where state-owned enterprises are being privatized unfairly to certain few individuals, and this is what you called this concept, Erdinbilgism. The reason why we're continuing with this topic again is because last week, Thursday, the president held a press conference to answer some of the questions raised by the deputy speaker when he talked about how the 49% stake in the state-owned enterprise Erdenet, the Russian government stake, was sold to a private Mongolian company called Mongolian Copper Corporation. And in his statement, the president said that somehow it seems as if the deputy speaker, Mr. Nimdorj, and the finance minister, Mr. Chojun-Suring, are conspired to bring this issue, to bring some controversy to this issue. And Mr. Nimdorj also in parliament session rebutted some of the statements that the president made. Tell me what you meant exactly by the term Erdinbilgism, what it means to Mongolia.
Well, before we go there, let's talk about the Mongolian government is not talking about, if you have noticed, about the particular sale of Russians 49% to anybody else, be it Mongolian, whatever. So we don't talk about that. The people are not talking about dissolving the issue of that sale. Now the issue in the government in Mongolia is why this 49% has more right than 51% due after this particular decisions made by their former finance minister, etc. And even they said that these people who made this sort of decisions are being investigated by anti-corruption agency. And as you have mentioned about the president's speech, he was not, by the way, we have a week ago demanded, where is Mr. President? Why you are not giving any comment? And it was nice to hear his comment, which was not very much substantial. Right. This was just like another fight in between Nimdorj and Dilbugdorj, etc. Actually, we don't care on that part. We do care about this 2 years going on secret deal of large asset-related trade from Russian side to Mongolian side. We are not against that, but we are against for having it all very secretly. And the president had not commented on that part, one. Secondly, I see even bigger picture. That's why I wrote that article. Why I wrote the article? Because you see, in the society like Mongolia, where the corruption came and taken all political institutions, also transferred the corruption to economic institutions, and economic institutions, instead of serving the public, now serving the political institutions. And vice versa, it should be altogether serving the people. Now it's just serving the political institutions and political elite.
and certain rich individuals.
Yes, and then what happens is that corruption is growing like a cancer to everything, to everybody across, horizontally, vertically, in the government walls, right? Institutional, political and economic institutions walls. Then when we cannot stop it, it came to such a level that now we cannot stop anymore. And that is, I take an example of one individual who were able to manage getting these whole institutions across political parties, across political and economic institutions, having the decisions that he wants. So it's called, because this, the actor beyond that is Mr. Ertin, who is the chairman of the TDB Bank. So I call it a new phenomena of Mongolian democracy and Mongolian corruption. Because, and I don't exclude that there will be another Erdenbilek, third Erdenbilek, who are coming and creating kind of monopoly in their own sectors. And why it is growing to the new phenomena. Before, you see, a guy was, if you are rich, you were donating $1 million to your political party, the guy becoming ministers too in their own industry where his business is.
You have
So
several cases in the current government as well.
Yes, but in this case of this gentleman, this guy, Erdenbilek, he is taken across the industries, mining industries, major mining assets now belongs to his group. Largest bank is his group. Ulaanbaatar Bank, former, the bank which the current Prime Minister Iqbal had created when he was
Speaker.
The speaker created when he was Ulaanbaatar mayor. With our money, he had created first Ulaanbaatar foundations, and with that money he created bank, insurance company, and eventually this man now owns 99% of that bank. And then now also he is planning to buy power station number 3, 4, Bagnor and Chiver-Ovo, they're all state-owned assets. All these things is according to the Speaker of the Parliament, Mr. Nyamdorch, who I believe he has a full responsibility to disclose, he was disclosing all the materials, and he has full responsibility. I'm based on what he's saying. So when the sort of phenomena will be a lot, 2 or 3 Erdenbilek, then we will have monopoly. And we will have monopolistic prices. And forget about free competition. Forget about equal chance to other companies, other people. So it is not the society we want to see. So, but unfortunately, the corruption came to such a level that I'm afraid we cannot manage anymore.
And something interesting that that developed last Friday, something related to Erdenet as well, was the arbitration case in London, where Standard Bank, a South African big international bank, sued Erdenet Mining Corporation because of a loan that Erdenet Mining Corporation guaranteed on behalf of a private company that Standard Bank lent money to, called Just Group. And Just Group, as we know, several years ago declared bankruptcy. So the loan was left to the guarantor, which was Erdenet Mining Corporation. And now there's an article developing that Erdenet lost the arbitration case. So the original loan was 109 million, and the arbitration court said they have to pay interests on the loan as well, which was 51 billion, interests and fees, and also the legal fees that the Standard Bank incurred, which I understand to be around 20 million. So that's around almost 180 million or so, 170, 80 million or so that Erdenet Mining Corporation will have to pay. So this is something, an example of corruption. This is the loan was given to the government before 2012, which was MPP.
The group, Just Group, was saying that that he had signed himself that signature for the guarantee letter, which turned out is not. and the signature of former Internet CEO is to be the original one, authentic. Now the Internet, or through Internet, all Mongolians are to pay that much money now. This is second case, I remember. First case was the Han Resources company that also sued Mongolian government for $300 million for just taking away their license and giving to Russians. And they have raised the fund. They couldn't do anything more in front of shareholders. They had to sue the government, and finally we had to pay $100 million. So now we not only Mongolia pay the big, huge foreign bond debt in their interests or guarantee by development bank, but also we suddenly start to pay this sort of money, and we don't know these people who signed, who made this fraud. They are not taking any responsibility. And they are beneficiaries of this whole things. We don't know how much they got money on that, but then, you know, these politicians or state-owned companies get the money, benefit, everything, and they disappear. Then we pay. How about that? And I don't know how many other bills to come. So it is again a kind of facet of that corruption we face. And the bad thing is, if we don't stop the corruption, then it will take all society also. So we will be controlled by only a few families for a few Erdenbilders, and then the remaining will have no equal chance at all. This is not that system we want to see, that society we want to live. So, but however, unfortunately, because the corrupt politicians, decision makers, we keep staying in this mud for quite some time.
Interesting topic as always. I'm sure we'll continue to talking about this issue as the government task force that they've set up to investigate the sale of it will announce their final verdicts. Let's move on to our next topic, which is the 2017 budget bill that the new government has introduced, submitted to Parliament. And according to the government's bill, the total revenue for next year is projected to be 5.9, almost 6 trillion tugriks. Expenditure is 8.6 trillion tugriks, which means the next year's budget deficit will be around 2.6 trillion tugriks. To me, it still seems excessive amount of budget deficit, which means that the government will have to borrow more than $1.23 billion next year just to fill this budget deficit. And what interesting to me was that when the government also created new social welfare programs, such as the old age stipend or something, that then they're going to spend 20.5 billion tugriks on it, and they are going to continue the child allowances, but a little more reasonable than targeting only poor families. And also they're going to create a new student loan fund. This will cost the budget around 101 billion tugriks next year as well. So it seems that the government has not been able to cut the deficit as much as economists and analysts would like, but they've also created these social welfare programs that doesn't seem to be very smart thing to do when we have these kind of economic difficult situations. My guess is because it's related to the upcoming local elections, maybe even related to next year's election, presidential elections. What's your thought on this 2017 budget bill?
Well, let's put separately two things. One is first the budget itself. The other is current situation with foreign debt, with all type of government debt. If you take the budget, this budget sounds like modest as last year or year before, you know. But I don't believe our budget, because it's like an endless talk. There is even one talk show in one TV program called Endless Talk. And then it's a kind of a fairy tale. Because at this time of the year, by law, they have to approve a budget. And that budget is that fairy tale they're mentioning.
That they've submitted.
Look at this. Now just the budget revenue next year, total is going to be about 6 billion. But our foreign and domestic debt payment for next year is more than 6 billion.
Yes.
So you can imagine how artificial is this. First, I'm saying first because Mongolia has now become a very strange country and strange government, because they keep first approving the budget, then amendment, they're doing first amendment, then they do the second amendment. And what a budget is this if you do 3, 4 budget amendments all the time? It looks like these parliamentarians are there always sitting to amend the budget. That's why I don't believe that this is the correct one. And the main reason is in Mongolia, because all those people who approve budgets are still also ministers who execute that budget. And because everybody wants to add more money to their own constituency at whatever cost. So that's why the budget is being like this all the time, like a rubber, you know. And first, from amendment to amendment, they keep changing the ceiling of the foreign debt, or total debt to the GDP, and also the deficit to the GDP. They keep changing. What the hell is the law is there if you keep changing all these limits all the time, and they are putting all this budget into the changed conditions.
The original fiscal stability law, one of the great good things that came out of the 2009 economic crisis was the fiscal stability law, which said budget deficit cannot be more than 2% of the GDP.
That was the best lying law I've ever seen.
And every year they increase.
Now it's about 10%.
And according to the bill, it's supposed to be 9.9% of the GDP. And this is a number that you and I probably will not believe. They'll probably change it as well.
It will be quite big change. And also now we should tell about the foreign debt, which is coming and which will be a big burden on the budget. Now up to date, what is clear that the government announced it officially, said that they will borrow more money. And to pay the old money. So we get a new debt to pay old debt. And we will ask, and now our foreign minister of finance minister and the Mongol bank governor are both in DC now to agree to sign maybe this IMF standby program, which we were expecting for a long time. So these are coming, and also they have to borrow. Even IMF is borrowing them $2 billion, which is not enough. Then they have to borrow from our south neighbor, which don't talk about much different conditions. They go a lot with big money, with almost no conditions. I mean,
there's always a hidden
the projects they go together. Certain things they should come. The projects,
railway,
people, labor, and then they will ask Japan for sure, the Asian Development Bank, World Bank for other discounted loan or aid. That's how I see they will try to get ends meet. But however, during this almost 100 days of this cabinet, they made very surprisingly good decisions I very much applaud, which is all company which has a revenue under than 1.5 billion tugriks, they will pay not 10%, only 1% tax on their revenue, which is a very good case. But I don't know how in reality it will be there. No, plus anyway, 86% of the companies in the country under these ceilings anyway. Concerning that some social costs you have raised, it's very controversial because pension fund is to be given back to people who paid pension during their working years. But this time now they say, no, everybody under 70 years old will get paid some money, which is called giving from the government, some kind of. And I don't
old age allowance.
Yes, I don't understand this economic mechanism. Because why people who had never worked but get 70 years old should be paid pension? It doesn't work in an economic way. And it is at the cost of people who have been paying all their life, their pensions. So this or the other thing is, remember they have decreased the children allowances to 1/3 of the children, about well, more than 1/3. But what will be the difference? How you make a differentiation between that target group and not target group? It is hell of work, because Mongolia has no system that individual is paying tax based on their family income. We don't have the system. So it will be very hard for them to classify whether he is or that child supposed or not supposed to receive money.
Okay, but to me, this budget bill is right before the election. We have to always remember we're still in a election campaign season.
Yeah, this local election we are now making October 19th at the Somon level or Horo level or the district level of the city, Somon level in IMAX, who will elect our officials who will represent the particular local people to their decision-making body. Actually, it's very important election, but somehow Mongolians don't pay attention to that. Right. Very little attention to these local elections, and less money goes there. But the very funny thing is, there was a guy who was giving in campaign speech in one Somon that, why are you coming to the Somon leadership? He said, oh, I will decrease inflation in our Somon. So this kind of discussions going on there.
Only in the Somon will it increase inflation.
And unfortunately, at that level, important to family living, everyday living, the conditions, maintenance, heating, utilities, all this, or the waste management. These decisions are made at that level, and at that level, this sort of people are coming. So, unfortunately, we need, on one hand, direct democracy. On the other side, on the other hand, we need a lot knowledge, confidence from local voters' side, local inhabitants, and on the other side, those who is running for local offices.
And one interesting thing that's in my mind is, if we agree to borrow money from IMF, World Bank, I'm afraid that IMF will ask the government, the parliament, to actually even decrease the budget deficit from what the bill is. So what's the point of approving a bill if only in a few months we'll have to cut the budget again?
Well, this is the bill for the sake of the bill, budget for the sake of the budget. They need to reconsider again.
And they always amend the budget right before a major holiday. Tagansar, the first budget amendment. Nadam, second budget amendment. All right. Let's move on to our next topic of conversation, which is constitutional reform. And what we've been talking about, amending our constitution to give more power to the executive branch and give less power to the president. And last Parliament 4 years, there was a serious talk about amending the budget, amending the constitution. There was even several task forces, working groups, many working groups created just to study or even draft the constitutional reform bill. And some of the problems we have with our governance, political corruption, is, I think, related also to the way our constitution is, how the political power is divided between different branches of government. Tell me your thoughts.
That's the problem. We keep criticizing that about this not proportional way, not independent, non-dependent way of these three powers. And actually, this executive power and legislative power is confused now, because one guy sitting here today is legislator, and next morning he is sitting as executive. And it's okay if we have 400, 600 parliament members like Canada, UK, on big population, a lot of parliamentarians, and 5, 10 becoming ministers, cabinet members. That's okay. But in the country like Mongolia, with only 76 seats in the parliament and 20 of them are becoming ministers, it is not okay, because it's keep confusing and it's creating corruption by influences. And now, as we talked before at the beginning of our program, that this political institutions are so much having impact on economic institutions, which is mostly a part of the executive power. They are creating, and well, because it is not cut, that corruption so much. And the other not clear thing in our power is presidency, president position. Because on one side in our constitution it says president is more symbolic.
Right.
He is expressing the unity of Mongolian people. But unfortunately in a real life more than that. This position is become so important. Like this, our two neighbors have similar, very not clear functions of president. And our president also becoming like this too. But however, Mongolia is a democracy. It's consisting of many political parties, and people choose one of them. It is not the case in our two neighbor countries. And then the president, for example, in case of Erdenet deal, he played the most important role, more than that he had agreed with Mr. President Putin about that deal.
Yeah.
Then now, if it went in such a secret way against the rules we have in this country, then will the president have any responsibility for that? Looks like not, because he's a symbolic figure, and you cannot have a symbolic figure for any responsibility to be held. So I think Mongolia, along with this double deal issue, we have to make clear on that. It is Japan or Germany. Germany is more federative, federal country, federation, so it's one issue. But Japan is more closer. It has two parliaments, right? Senators and the parliamentarians, representative office and senator, which is selected on, in some countries, on merit even more best. If it is the executive power like this, legislative power like this, then executive power to be one person, executive prime minister, or we can call that person as a president like in Germany, in the US. But it should be very clear who must take responsibility for their actions, which is very muddy, not clear in Mongolia.
Me personally, I want to see the prime minister more like the way it is in Japan, where the prime minister takes responsibility for the whole government, for the whole executive branch, for everything that's wrong or even good, also good with the country as well. When the economy is struggling, the prime minister takes responsibility. When the economy is growing, the prime minister takes the merit.
And to have him to have more power, including dissolving the parliament.
Right, exactly.
Yep. Well, a lot of things to do, and for Mongolian democracy, we need a lot to go, and we need to go together with more knowledge, more inspiration, but most importantly, with more hope that we can solve our problems. We can combat these corruptions. We can hold responsible these people who are misusing our property and interests.
And that all starts with personal responsibility, personal participation in politics, personal, and going out to polling stations and voting.
Yep.
And my fear is that this local election will probably have one of the lowest turnouts ever, because this is only the local election. Previous elections, they were always paired with parliament or IMEG or capital city council elections, but this is only a district and some elections as well.
With that, I think we need to conclude, right?
Right.
And we are very thankful for everybody watching our program. We try to make independent review analysis for important events of last week. We are streamlining our program live on Facebook for our international viewers. So again, thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everyone, and see you next week.
So, done.